So I wanted to give you a little bit of bonus content for Halloween because I think Halloween for most of us sort of feels like bonus content, right? Sort of feels like an extra holiday. You don't have a lot of the same obligations that you used to have for other holidays. It's something that you can really craft your experience in. I think that's why people like it. I also like it because I kind of like the iconography of it in a lot of ways. I do struggle with it being like taking macabre and occult and making it cutesy, but that's a personal thing that I have to deal with. Um, but I wanted to talk on this Halloween about one of my favorite things that I do, but I don't do it on Halloween. A New Year's Day tradition I have is that every New Year's Day, sci-fi, which is sci-fi, which it's been through several iterations, used to do a Twilight Zone marathon. And this Twilight Zone marathon became pretty formative for me. I knew Twilight Zone from when I was little, but I came back to it again and again over the years, before there were DVD sets even. And so I want to talk about some of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes. I know a fair bit about the show. I know a fair bit about Rod Serling. I know there's some contention about some of the episodes possibly being plagiarized. I'm not sure if I know enough to agree or disagree with that concept, but I just wanted to give you a list of really cool episodes that you could possibly watch or enjoy if you're looking for a spooky alternative this evening. It's something that if you like horror films that are universal based, you're probably going to like Twilight Zone stuff because some of the episodes, especially I like, really deal in that sort of melodramatic, that sort of gingerbread house look, the very much German expressionism, European feeling that the Universal monster movies of the 40s gave you. Um, and Twilight Zone is something that we continue to come back to as a culture. I mean, it was one of the things that um, Jordan Peele decided to revitalize. It's something that we see shades of in Black Mirror, even though they try to do it in a much more slick manner. The Outer Limits obviously was a contemporary Alfred Hitchcock Presents, but I don't think that anything really beats Twilight Zone. And I think it's because Rod's messages were so on point, his messages about what it really meant to live in a post war society, um, what it meant to not be able to talk about racism, which is actually something on this list, and have to replace racism with robots or with deafness or whatnot. There's something very pointed. And even though it's an anthology, and so none of the episodes are cliffhangers or anything like that, um, you really feel his intent in the work. You really feel how much he put of himself into the work, and it's probably one of the most successful TV shows, not just made in America, but anywhere. It's something I hold very dear to my heart. It's something when I do stuff with sci-fi or with horror, I tend to look back on the Twilight Zone. And so I wanted to share that with you this Halloween, give you some spooky bonus stuff that you can enjoy. My top 11 list, because I couldn't do a top 10, is not going to match your top 10 list of episodes. In fact, some of the episodes that are most well known about Twilight Zone are not on my list at all. But that does not mean that those episodes are not valid. I just don't want to see William Shatner at 30,000 feet doing anything. So it's not really on my list. This is also a really great show if you love the game of what famous person do I know was in the show, because you'd be amazed at the number of people that you see that became really famous or were really famous at the time that stopped by the Twilight Zone for a brief moment. So enough of the pattering around. Let's get to the list. My number 11 spot, which was very hard, by the way, because I had several here, including Ring a Ding Girl, which didn't make it in. My number 11 spot goes to Elegy. And this is one of my favorite twists, actually. This is one of my favorite, almost kind of Ray Bradbury techniques. So Elegy is about these astronauts that land on a planet, and all the people on these planets are frozen in different vignettes in different places. And the twist of it, about who is the bad guy and where they actually are, is really neat. I love how they do the set pieces. I love they have actors just kind of frozen in time. It's a twist you really don't see coming, and I think that makes it better. I also think Elegy showcases what works about black and white TV because it has a very Addams Family vibe. where you can tell there's definitely color that they were filming black and white on to make the black and white pop. Um, Elegy is a really good half an hour mystery. It's a really good mystery with the twist. It does really well in that bittersweetness of the episode is over, but nothing is resolved, but not in a way that makes you wait for resolution. So Elegy was something I just really had to shout out. It's one of the last episodes too, which is kind of funny. You have to wade through quite a bit to get to Elegy. Um, the number 10 on my list is going to be controversial because everyone loves this. It gets referenced everywhere. It was in one of the original Triasses of Horrors. To Serve Man is my number 10. I think it's good. Do not get me wrong. To Serve Man is an amazing episode. I think if I hadn't seen it so much in the zeitgeist, so much in other places of pop culture, it would probably be much higher on the list. I think To Serve Man, the reveal that it's a cookbook, the reveal that you're trapped in space, traveling to your doom after all this about peace and giving. I think it's a really good commentary on how we fool each other. I think the alien design is simple but elegant. I think it works really well. That's why it gets copied over and over again. I think To Serve Man, if it hadn't been done to death everywhere, would probably be much higher on my list. But I love To Serve Man. Number 9 is Five Characters in Search of an Exit, which is based on a play, uh, which is, I think it's Five Authors in Search of the Exit is the name of the play. I'm probably getting the play name wrong. Please do not send me an angry email. I know I'm getting it wrong. But Five Characters in Search of an Exit is these 5 people dressed up in very archetypal clothing. They're talking to each other, they're trying to escape. The ground shakes every now and then for reasons you don't find out until the end. This is one of the kind of winter Christmas episodes, not of which there aren't many of those in Twilight Zone. But when he does them, like Night of the Meek, they're really, really good. Five Characters in Search of an Exit is one of my personal favorites. I was so surprised it ended up so low on this list. Um, but it's this great thing of you don't actually know what's happening until the very end, and it is kind of a shocking end. Five Characters in Search of an Exit is a really great examination of how you can do a lot with little because it doesn't go to a secondary set. There's literally 5 people in a blank room, and every now and then the room shakes and they're trying to escape it. And it's half an hour of that, which sounds like it could drag on, but it does not drag because there's so much they have to learn about each other. And I feel like a lot of the randomization work I do as a GM or a DM in tabletop gaming, you can probably find shades of Five Characters in Search of an Exit there. My number 8 is I Am the Night, Color Me Black. This is one of the only episodes that outright deals with racism, and I love this concept. I have borrowed this concept actually several times, and it's the idea of an innocent man is going to die for something he didn't do, and the entire universe is revolting against injustice. It's just one injustice too far. And the conceit of the episode is as the timer counts down to death row, the stars start to go out, darkness starts to envelop the world. Um, and everyone can tell what they're doing is wrong, but they can't seem to stop themselves from doing it. They can't seem to reckon with the injustice they've created. And so the punishment is darkness that overtakes everything. I am not doing it justice. It is revolutionary, it is reactionary. I don't know if it could even get made today without so many protests. And I think that's what makes it great. It's a gem that no one talks about. And I really think it's a gem that is worth people looking into that do incarceratory justice. It's one of the few episodes that deals with anything in the prison or prison reform system, really. But I Am the Night, Color Me Black deserves to be on this list. And it deserves to be seen more and heard more. And so I implore you that if it's something that interests you, I Am the Night, Color Me Black is a really great episode. Number 7 is called The Midnight Sun. This is the first Twilight Zone episode I ever saw, and it just sticks in my brain. It is not the best episode. The pacing of it makes it feel too quick. It's very like hysterical woman trope, so it feels very like 1980s, 1990s play sort of. But The Midnight Sun is about the sun getting hotter and getting closer to Earth. It's about our own destruction and something that we cannot fight or stop. And it's about how we become the worst versions of ourselves. and who that turns us into. This is one of my kind of German expressionist cinema loves episodes. The Midnight Sun is just pure hysteria, it's pure panic, it's pure malice. It takes place in one location, but characters come in and out at that one location, so it's really well done economically. So I'd say The Midnight Sun is worth visiting. Um, one episode that is great, but that may not be worth visiting for some of you, or maybe should be visited for some of you, is my number 6 episode, which is called, and I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sorry, Death's Head Revisited. The title is based on Bride's Head Revisited, but Death's Head Revisited is about a concentration camp. It is about ghosts and it is about justice. And if you have not seen it, I'm not going to say more than that. Just know that it is something to watch. It is very important. It is definitely one of Rod Serling's more pointed pieces of this is what happened in history that we have not yet reckoned with, completely sort of thing. Death's Head Revisited is about pride and shame and work. And it's amazing. There's just a psychicness to the episode that makes it feel so real and sadly still so very modern. But it is sort of in the middle of this list, and I just could not get away from it. And it felt like it would be do a disservice to Rod Serling's legacy not to include it, even though it's not really about robots, it's not really science fiction. It does have a ghost element to it, so it is more horror. But that's what Twilight Zone was. It wasn't just robots, it wasn't just aliens landing, and the reveal being that the person is big and the aliens are small because they're actually from Earth, kind of thing. It's so much more than that. Speaking of so much more than that, we head up to number 5 in the list, and number 5 is Where Is Everybody? For me, this is the first episode. So if you watch, if you watch Twilight Zone on Hulu, or if you buy one of the weirder box sets, they're not always in order of episode order, which you can definitely tell, especially if you have episodes where the introduction is different from episode to episode, because the introductions only changed season to season, and in some cases, not even each season has a different variation. But so Where Is Everybody is technically both the first episode, but kind of a pilot, but also not a pilot. But Where Is Everybody it's usually given the spot of first episode. Sometimes the Wikipedia doesn't even agree on that. But Where Is Everybody is a great episode of one guy running around for 30 minutes trying to figure out what is going on. Literally, literally says, Where is everybody? And that does sound kind of hokey, right? Because it's the title of the episode. But it works fairly well. I think Where Is Everybody is a celebration of why community works and why we need each other, and what happens when you strip the humanity away from a person. Where Is Everybody is iconic, and it was a really strong coming out of the gate for Twilight Zone. The next one is probably my personal favorite, and probably it's weird because it's a number 4 to say it's my personal favorite, but it's the one I think about when I think about Twilight Zone. So this is The Obsolete Man. This is German expressionism at its finest in this episode. It's most obvious in this episode. This is probably also outright the most Christian episode. You don't get much more Christian coded, not even coded, than The Obsolete Man. This is an episode about fascism. It is not dressed up to be particularly pleasant for a variety of reasons, one of which is that Rod Serling did not believe in fascism. He was definitely an anti-fascist. Yeah, and The Obsolete Man, I think this is one of the episodes where it's not about what kind of twist, how can we twist the audience. This was something about Twilight Zone that's really important versus other science fiction anthology series, other anthology series altogether, is the idea that Rod Serling never wanted to trick the audience. There was a twist that was supposed to make you think, something that was going to be revealed that was going to be really neat, but it was never about tricking you. It was never about being mean. It was never about pulling the rug. And I think The Obsolete Man does this really well. Like I will say I am slightly bothered by the not semi, the overt Christian theming of this episode. That's the one thing where I'm like, we could have gone with a different book. But I understand why it's there. I think as long as you can kind of get past that, it is a pretty good episode. It has the intensity of what's called the Hitchcock bomb, which if you don't know that, it's about you put dynamite under the chair of someone, but you only let the audience see it, so the audience ramps up in tension and the characters don't. It has a lot of that to it, so it's a really good like Hitchcockian episode if you're into Hitchcock. Yeah, and the Obsolete Man, probably one of the ones I think about the most in regards to Twilight Zone, but it only comes in at number 4 on my list. And I have to tell you, the top 5 spots were hard, man. They were hard to make. This is the VHS ranking list all over again. But that was number 4, The Absolute Man. Number 3 is probably one of the most popular episodes of The Twilight Zone, which is Eye of the Beholder. This is the one where all of the people have pig faces, and the beautiful people are the one trying to get surgery to become pig-faced so they fit into society. There's a lot about conformity. The word ghetto is used in its more classical sense, not in a denigratory sense. And it's about wanting to just be one of the crowd. Like what happens when you stand out and that's a burden to you. Eye of the Beholder is a great episode. It doesn't drag. The surprises in it are surprising in a great way. And if you read the Twilight Zone companion book, which I have the 3rd edition of, it's one of my favorite things to kind of peruse, which is weird to say this true. If you look at the book, they talk about the process of making kind of the pig faces and how they went for, ugly, but they went for a striking ugly, so it's still somewhat symmetrical. It just looks off, but it was something they could do several times. And the process of Eye of the Beholder is so interesting about how we made TV in the 60s, about how they were still using radio and film techniques to really make TV something where it was its own medium, but it wasn't, you know, just aping something on a smaller scale. I think Eye of the Beholder is a correct placement at number 3, because it's something you can watch over and over again, but it's not necessarily, it's exciting, but after like the 4th or 5th time, you're like, oh, this is going to happen. But I still enjoy it every time. Um, Kind of moving into my second, which also has sort of this prosthetic. This is really going to surprise some people because you probably think you know what my top 2 are. Um, it is not Monsters or Joe on Maple Street, by the way. It's not the one where the woman is a mannequin secretly. Those are good guesses. My second one is The Masks, which is from later in the series, and this is set in New Orleans, and this is about a grandfather dying and all of his family members being awful and just wanting money or whatever they can get out of him. And he punishes them by showing them who they truly are by having them wear masks that twist their face in the visage he has decided they deserve. This is a straight out punishment. This is definitely like what's the word? This is definitely like revenge tragedy almost. This is sort of like you're getting punished by someone who has arbitrarily decided what you deserve. But I think The Masks does it well. It does it well in setting up that this family is a nightmare, so it's not like they're not being it's not like they're being given undue punishment, as it were. Um, The Masks is an episode that I would actually do a sequel to, like showing the influence. It feels like it's an episode that could have ran into an hour, which we get in some of the middle seasons, which is why you have some episodes that feel very long because they are. And The Masks is one that I wish had been an hour long because I want to see the fallout. I want to see the changes, if there are any, in the lives of the people who this grandfather on his deathbed curses. I do think it's a really interesting one because it's one of the few that are like super occult driven. It's a very specific thing that happens in this episode. And I think it works really well. Mask is my number 2. My number 1, which is not necessarily my favorite, but it's one I really like, I think it's really compelling, is called The Silence. This is an episode about a bet gone wrong This is an episode about capitalism. This is an episode about high society. This episode has everything. I can't do the Stefan voice, but this is the sort of episode that you think you know what it is, and it's completely not that. And by the time you've realized you haven't caught up to what the lesson is going to be, the lesson happens, and it's the first time you see it, you're like, whoa. And then every time after you think, this could have gone such a bad way, but because Rod was so deft at what he was doing, it goes in a magnificent direction. So my top episode choice, if you're looking for something spooky, unexpected spooky even, is The Silence. And so here are my top 11 again. We're going to go ranking from number 11 up to number 1. I did not give you what season or episode these are on. You can pretty much find it. If you have it on streaming, you'll be able to find them. But they vary throughout the series. So number 11 was Elegy, and I know that's towards the end of the series. Number 10 was To Serve Man, which I think is toward the beginning, possibly season 2. Number 9 is Five Characters in Search of an Exit. Number 8 is I Am the Night, Color Me Black, which I believe is toward the end of the series. Number 7 is The Midnight Sun. Number 6 is Death's Head Revisited. Number 5 is Where Is Everybody? Number 4 is The Obsolete Man. Number 3 is Eye of the Beholder. Number 2 is The Masks. And number 1 is The Silence. And that's my list of Twilight Zone episodes, my recommendations, my bonus content for you spooky ookies that want a little bit of horror or a little bit more science fiction in your spooky evening. I hope you have a really great Halloween or All Saints Day, or whatever holiday you celebrate on October 31st. And if you don't celebrate, I hope you have a great Halloween Town holiday because you've probably got a witch somewhere in your family. But I'll see you next time with Magnus again for a non-bonus usual episode of Everything is Gay, even the straight stuff. Stay spooky.